Welcome to my stone softening peer review video. Let me say up front, this isn't the philosopher's stone. It's the first working version, and we're going to refine it together with your help. In this video, you'll learn all the essential ingredients and steps you need to quote-unquote soften stones yourself. Let's dive in. Let's clear something up right at the start. There's no such thing as stone softening. That's just a myth. What does exist is the chemical etching of stone, which can look like the stone has been softened, but it's a completely different process. It's the chemical breakdown of stone. So now you're going to carry out that ancient Peruvian technique spoken of in the legends, but which we know is not actually stone softening. Its basic components are potassium hydroxide, sodium hydroxide, sand, or other crushed stone, such as granite, and water. Why exactly potassium hydroxide and sodium hydroxide, you might ask? Well, it's because the soil of the Peruvian highlands is salty, table salt salty, and the local plants are salt tolerant, meaning they absorb sodium chloride from the soil and store it in their tissues. That's where the sodium comes from. Potassium, on the other hand, is present in every plant, because it's essential for photosynthesis. As a result, Peruvian wood ash uniquely contains both types of lye, potassium hydroxide and sodium hydroxide. This is a pretty rare alignment. And yet, this is precisely the secret of success. The salt. Since we don't exactly have Peruvian ash lying around, we won't overthink it. We'll simply buy bottles of potassium hydroxide and sodium hydroxide flakes from a DIY soap-making shop. Trust me, if we extracted them from ash, everything would work exactly the same way. Potassium hydroxide and sodium hydroxide are no joke, they're viciously caustic. After all, they even eat through granite, so always wear safety goggles and rubber gloves. What's more, I recommend doing your little cooking session outdoors on a hot plate, because their vapors are corrosive as well and can build up in a small kitchen or workshop. Or at the very least, open a window. If it splashes accidentally, it etches glass, so using the family's one and only glass ceramic cooktop is a very bad idea. So the secret is that a mixture of these two lyes melts at a dramatically lower temperature than either of them alone. The physical phenomenon is called the eutectic point, and on this diagram you can see how the melting point of the mixture drops to 168 degrees Celsius, even though each component on its own melts at close to 400 degrees Celsius. This means that together, mixed, they will melt under normal kitchen conditions and will be able to etch quartz, producing water glass, without us having to reach extreme temperatures. Even the cheapest electric hot plate provides enough power for the experiment. Here are the two chemical reactions that will run in parallel in the pot. A few words about the pot. Molten lye eats everything, granite, metals, anything you throw at it. That's why ancient Peruvians used the tops of stones as their pots. The lye will eat the rock too, but that's actually a good thing, since it produces water glass. Using a copper or iron vessel would have been pointless, it would be destroyed instantly. If you don't happen to have a suitable rock lying around at home, I recommend using a stainless steel pot. It doesn't have to be expensive. Mine cost $20. Even that will get etched by the lye after a single cook, but at least it survives quite a few rounds. Now the actual cooking begins. Don't be surprised, but this is a multi-day affair, since the dry water glass that forms in the first round needs at least 24 hours to dissolve before the cooking can continue. Day 1. Measure out 25 grams of potassium hydroxide, then 25 grams of sodium hydroxide. It's very important to note that the Peruvian natives truly obtained these substances from ash lye. They absolutely did not have them available in flake form. That's why we now pour these two measured white lyes into 1 deciliter of water, so it resembles ash lye a bit more. Always add the lye to the water, never the other way around, because reversing the order can easily cause an accident. By the way, the stone melting reaction itself also produces water, as we've already seen in those equations, so there's no real point in messing around dry anyway, it's going to get wet regardless. On top of that, Water is essential for the lyes to find the silicon dioxide, because water also acts as the lubricant of the reaction. Now let's add 100 grams of sand to the alkaline solution we just prepared. Why exactly 100 grams? Let's see. The 25 plus 25 grams of lye will dissolve about 33 grams of sand in the first round. Yes, but we want to produce a higher modulus water glass with longer silicate chains, and for that we need more sand. For a modulus of 2.5, we need 2.5 times as much silicon dioxide, that is roughly 80 grams. However, sand is not 100% CO2, so with a bit of extra margin, 100 grams will definitely be enough. Now comes the cooking. We'll have 2 cooking rounds on 2 different days. What we need to watch is the size of the bubbles. On the first day they're tiny, on the second they're coin-sized, and on the third they're about half a pot across, as more and more sand turns into water glass. You can observe that this gunk doesn't boil at 100 degrees Celsius at all, but can go as high as 180 degrees Celsius over time, way above the shared melting point of the 2 lyes, which is 168 degrees Celsius. Let's pause here for a moment. This is the climax of the video. It's perfectly clear that whatever is bubbling here at 185 degrees Celsius cannot be water, right? Well, by now, the proportions have changed. The 1 deciliter of water have boiled away, and what we're left with here is molten lye above the eutectic point, nicely chewing through the sand and producing water glass. Meanwhile, the chemical reaction releases water, which at 185 degrees immediately evaporates. So the bubbling is indeed caused by water, but not the water we poured in. It's the water generated during the reaction. The actual cooking lasts about 30 minutes, during which the bubbles are small. I usually keep cooking until the pot goes completely quiet. I let the temperature climb all the way to the hot plate's maximum, which in my case is 250 degrees. That's still basically pizza baking territory, so the pot handles it just fine. After the first round, the dry material at the bottom of the pot is still soft and can be cut with a spatula. But we're not done yet. Now we wait until the contents of the pot cool below 100 degrees Celsius, and then we add 2 deciliters of water. Why exactly 2 deciliters? That's what the math gives for dissolving the water glass that has formed. Day 2. The second day might be even more exciting than the first. The semi-solid gunk dissolved within 24 hours. Unfortunately, that greenish tint means the lye has started to eat into the pot as well. Oh well, let's keep going. For now, there's still plenty of sand left in the mixture. That's because during the first boil, only the initial 30 grams of sand dissolved, forming simple water glass. This is what we call modulus 1 water glass, where a single silicon oxide hangs off each potassium or sodium atom. The secret to the strength and stickiness of water glass is having longer chains, at least 2, but preferably 3 silicon oxide units attached to each metal atom. In other words, our modulus shouldn't be 1, but 2 or even 3. And for that, we'll have to cook it again. And now comes the fun part. Today's batch boils twice. First, around the 20-minute mark, the water we added boils away, and it looks like the cooking is over. But the exact opposite is true. Once those 2 deciliters of water are gone, the dry, glittering water glass can finally heat up further, reaching about 150 degrees Celsius, when the second boil, the most wanted second chemical reaction kicks in. At this temperature, the modulus 1 water glass starts attacking the sand. Surprisingly, this second reaction, completely different from yesterday's, also produces water, so the bubbling returns. And what bubbles they are! Hate to disappoint you, but these are still only medium-sized bubbles. Let's speed things up a bit so we can clearly see the reaction sweep through the entire batch from the top of the pot, almost like a chain reaction. Magnificent! Meanwhile, we'll take the temperature. Look at that, the bubbling parts are at 150 to 160 degrees Celsius, while the areas that haven't reacted yet are still hovering around 100 degrees Celsius. As the reaction runs its course, it leaves behind a desert of modulus 2 water glass. From here on out, it's the usual routine. We wait for it to cool down, give it a little tap. Well, would you look at that, it's solid as concrete. And on goes the customary 2 deciliters of water. Now it'll sit for another 24 hours. Day 3. Today's surprise, after 24 hours, our water glass still hasn't fully dissolved. Top-notch quality. Well then, we'll give it another day. Day 4. To keep this video from getting too long, we're skipping a 3rd round of boiling, even though that would give us even higher quality water glass. Instead, we're diving straight into the masonry work. You can use the finished water glass in the most primitive way as follows, and sprinkle additional sand into the dissolved, roughly 36% sandy water glass mixture. Make a nice, very wet slurry, and shape something out of it on a tilted tray. The tilting replaces the nub, this way the unreacted lye can drain out of the artificial stone, and the final product eventually becomes waterproof, after about a month. Pro tip, if you want it to set immediately and be waterproof by the next day, mix in pine wood ash, say about 100 g. Draining the nub, that is, letting the remaining lye flow out, is still necessary, because if it stays inside the stone, it will eventually crack it apart. This is how the incredible, magical, carvings in Peru were made, that is, this material was used to coat stairways, cliff faces, and quote-unquote, carved recesses. The result, the artificial stone, is remarkably similar to the original base material. Very similar, but not quite the same. A slight color difference always gives it away. Speaking of slight color differences, this is Petra. And this is the unfinished obelisk, as seen with a digital camera. I still owe you 2 things. First, the half-pot-sized bubbles. Here they are. Second, whether this whole thing works with granite rubble. Yes, very much so. Now I ask everyone who can to try this recipe and confirm that it works. It's just 2 cooking steps. Using ancient methods to soften stone, well, to make water glass, is dead simple.